One of the biggest mistakes I see engineers make in AWS and Azure is trying to copy architectures instead of understanding why they exist. And this mistake does not just fail interviews, it failed real production systems as well. So, what people usually do, you will often hear things like this company runs everything on multi AZ. They are active across regions, or this is the recommended reference architecture. So people assume if I copy this setup, I will be safe. Like if I will be copying a complete architecture of someone, then I will be safe and I can easily implement it in my own system. But that assumption is wrong. So the core idea here is like why copying breaks the system is architecture in AWS and Azure don't exist because they are best practice. So they exist because of specific constraints, things like uptime guarantee and failure tolerance, like regulatory pressure or business risk. So, when you copy an architecture without those constraints, you are copying decisions without any context. So, let's take an example. So, we are taking an example of AWS multi-AZ deployment. So, many teams enable multi-AZ everywhere by default. Like they enable load balancers, they enable databases, they enable application tiers. But the senior question here is what failure are we actually protecting against? I have seen teams pay significantly more for multi-AG, only to discover the application could not even handle failover correctly. So there will be more cost, more complexity, and same downtime over the time. Let's take another example of Azure. So the same thing happens in Azure as well. Team lift on-prem architectures straight into Azure using availability sets like availability zones and replicas without even evaluating whether the original assumptions still apply. So cloud changes the failure model here. Like if you will ignore that, you inherit old problems in a new environment. So the old problem that you were facing inside your old environments, and if you will ignore that, then these problems will definitely come into your new environment as well. So here, what senior thinks? Senior engineers don't ask like how do I create this architecture in AWS or Azure. They ask they ask things like what problem was this solving and what's the simplest way to solve it now. One approach copies diagrams and the other evaluates trade-off. So I can say like this is what good interviewer are actually testing. In interviews and in real world, they are not checking if you remember service names, or they are not checking they are not checking if you remember resources, what kind of resources and what kind of cloud environment you are using. They are simply checking if you can reason under uncertainty. So they are also checking if you can explain why something exists, when it is unnecessary, and what happens when it fails. So here's the takeaway: don't copy AWS or Azure architecture. Understand the constraints behind them. Good engineers build systems, senior engineers evaluate decisions. I will cover more real production scenarios like this in the next video. Thank you.